And I'm starting with the worst thing, probably the worst video we have this evening. It's Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh is one of the worst fucking people. He's just an insecure douchebag at all times. Like this Matt Walsh is the same guy who quite literally tweeted, having dreams like when you sleep is like unmanly and weird. He thinks that if you have a dream, like a fanciful dream in your sleep, that it's like low testosterone beta shit. He's a fucking weirdo. He's incredibly insecure. Like he doesn't like. He's like anti-birthday party. I can't believe an adult would have a birthday party. What, you got to be fucking serious at all times, 100% of the time? He is an unhappy man. And I know he thinks he's happy, right? But like the other day, his wife was like, this was crazy to me. His wife tweeted, I know a lot of people think Matt is this big hard ass, but he's really a softie. And her evidence for that was basically they found a dog that had like needed care, and he let them care for it. Like a dog that like needed like was like abused or left out in the rain or something. He let them. She's like, and he let us take care of the dog. Let us. That's an example of him being a good guy. Incredible stuff. Matt Walsh, conservative tough guy, part of the Basement Boys along with Crowder and Pepino. All their sets look like they're in a basement. They really do look like they're in a basement. This looks like a den. Yeah. So the bare minimum. Exactly. Just a fucking, such a softie, dude. So anyway, this is this is Matt Walsh. When this was pitched to me, this came out on June 5th, so we didn't watch this. Matt Walsh's reviews a woke children's book, and it's called C is for Consent. When this was pitched to me, the person who sent it to me said, "This is one of the worst Matt Walsh videos I've ever seen. Prepare yourself." Knowing that I watch Matt Walsh, not all the time, but probably a couple times a month, we watch a Matt Walsh video. So apparently this is really bad, and it flew under the radar here. So I guess we'll see. It was you, Cookies Creme? It's horrible? Wow. Okay. So bad. All right, so I haven't seen this, so let's watch it. This is Matt Walsh talking about consent, and he is anti the message of this book, which is fucking wild.
Okay, so now we're going to look at another woke children's book. This one, on the surface, I mean, literally reading the book by its cover, it seems maybe not as bad as some of the others that we've looked at. That we've reviewed, but you never know. So we just got to, we're going to read this whole thing. It's pretty short, and I'll read the whole thing, and then I'll offer my review. So let's get into it. This is called C is for Consent. And this...
Wait, what was the... What? Why would it be anti that?
It says ages, this is for ages 0 and plus. So if you have a 0-year-old child, they could read this and up from there. I mean, it's a board book, it's short, so this is really for kids probably, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. All right. It says, it's time for a party with family and friends.
Cool.
And you see, of course, there we've got the interracial gay couple, we've got the interracial disabled couple, one member of the couple's disabled. You got to get all the representation there. And
it's interesting. Hold on, I want to go to the wider shot.
You see, of course, there.
I guess we go back a little bit further. It's interesting to me that he'd be upsetty spaghetti about this. The biggest family here is the white family with the child, and they're heterosexual. And then there's another heterosexual couple back here, and these two are gay. There's only one gay couple, it looks like. I mean, as best we could tell. But the interracial couple, you can't. If we're interracial, we can't love each other or something. I don't know. Pretty weird. Why do you think they're all couples? I mean, maybe these are just bros. I don't know. That's true. It's time for a party with family and friends. That's true. I probably think that the implication here is that they're all couples because they are trying to be inclusive and just showing that, hey, kids, families look different in all sorts of ways, which is true, by the way. Families do, in reality, look different. So, I mean, it's not even like woke to be like including families that don't look like your family. Anyone with black children in the storybook, don't touch my hair is a good alternative. That's true.
Couples disabled. You got to get all the representation there.
So he's mad about it.
And I don't see any furries. I don't see anyone who's.
Oh, so the joke here is it's not 100% inclusive. That's not the point. That's not the point. When the idea here is when you make children's content, the idea of showing a diverse group of people in that scene isn't to push some sort of agenda. It's literally just to make sure that the reader sees themselves in the book, or at least they are close to that, right? I don't think most kids are like, oh yeah, where's the furry representation in my family party? Furries don't wear fursuits to family events, typically. It might happen, but I mean, like, it's not, I don't know. He's just so weird. He's just so weird.
Apparently transsexual or even transgender or pansexual, so that's a problem. But
how do you know none of those people are pan or trans? What? How can he possibly tell that? That's a weird thing.
We'll keep going. Grandma wants
They're actually all furries. True.
a hug, but Finn isn't in the mood.
Okay, he doesn't have
That's
to.
okay, says Dad. You don't have to give hugs if you don't want to.
That's true. That is how consent works. You do not have to do things you don't want to do.
Grandpa leans down to kiss Finn. Mom says, please ask for consent first. Grandpa asks, may I kiss you on the cheek? Finn replies, yes, you may.
I like that they chose the name of the child to be Finn, which is one of like you know how like when straight couples, especially straight white suburban couples, try to name their child and they do like oh, what are the top names right now? It's like that, but if you were to name a non-binary person, Finn is one of the top ones. I'm calling all of you out. ICP member Violent J's daughter Ruby is a furry. How badass is that? A furry juggalo. That's cool. Finn is a good name, yeah. Riley is my favorite. I mean, there's lots. I mean, any name can be, neutral if that's how you want to feel. But yeah, I just think it's funny that he doesn't pick up on that. So I don't have any problem with this at all. In fact, as a kid, I would have really liked this sort of stuff. Excuse me, I got like a thing. Got a little Coke bubble in my trachea.
Was just
Those Diet Coke bubbles. As a kid, I always wanted to hug my grandparents. It was not a big deal. I like hugs. I'm a hug guy. Give me a hug if you want. Thank you for following. No, this is Bray. I feel like my family did the kiss thing though. My dad's side of the family did familial mouth kiss. That's I just got squicked out from it. I don't like it. I don't like that shit. Ugh, I'm still squicked out. Ugh. My dad used to do that, and that was like super normal, like Tom Brady. I didn't like that shit. It happened a few times to me, and then I was like, nah, I'm good. And it wasn't like a predatory thing. It was just how they showed love, and it's not a big deal. But it like didn't make me. It still makes me uncomfortable. I am tingling right now with my uncomfortability about that. But I can remember the last time my dad did it. I was like probably 10 or something, maybe younger, and he did it, and his mouth was like cold and wet, and I just remember that feeling just making me squicked. I don't like it. It's pretty yikesy. I mean, in a familial way. It was never like anything weird, but. I didn't like that shit. Cold, clammy lips. Yeah, because a lot of people grew up like that, which is interesting to me. My mom's side did not do that. They just have hugs and stuff, which is cool. But I mean, kisses on the cheek and stuff is cute. I mean, sometimes if you love a kid, like I don't know if any of you. I mean, a lot of you probably have kids, but I've dated people with kids before, and their love is just overwhelming and they need to get it out and they want to kiss a kid on the cheek. That's cool. I mean, I think love and expressing love, especially in a physical way, is a super good thing, especially if it's like consenting like that. And most kids like love physical affection. with their loved ones, their parents, their family members, and their like brother or sister or something like I don't know. I think it's a very warm environment that is a good thing, absolutely. But I do think, and luckily my ex was good at this. I do think kids need to understand they have consent. We've talked about this a lot. This is super important just in life to learn early on that even grandpa has to be given consent. You know what I mean? Love is gross. Hashtag segment mail. True. Generally don't like receiving kisses, but hugging I'll do all day. That's good. Tongue kisses? No, not tongue kisses. Who would tongue kiss? What? Why are we talking about tongue kisses? No, like a familial kiss, like on the cheek or the forehead or like their hair or I guess the top of their head, not their hair. You're not kissing their hair, but you like yeah, I've seen that. Like shit, I do that with my dog. Like, Brooke said their fan did it. My mom did. My mom did tongue kisses. Wait, what? Hold on. Wait, what? Wait. Hold on. We need to unpack this. I didn't realize this was going to happen. What does that mean? What do you like in your mouth? Like in your mouth? Blech. I don't like that. I don't like that. In it? Or do you mean like licking your fucking face? You mean like what? Well, we're not talking about molestation, although I am sorry that happened to you. We're not talking about any sort of sexual assault or anything like that. That happens, which is obviously sad, but I mean just like a familial sort of like love, like licking each other's tongues outside the... What? Licking each other's tongues outside the mouth. What is that? Is that a thing? That is so weird and interesting. What is happening? What? And it was your mom? I need to understand this better. We rubbed noses? Like normal people. What do you mean normal people? No one fucking does nose rub kisses to their family. I think that must be a troll. No, Brooke isn't a troll. Brooke is a member of this. I mean, Brooke is like I love Brooke to death. A well-respected member of our community. There is no trolling going on. Skycall Fallen, I missed your biddies? Oh, no. I mean, I'm sorry. Things have been happening. Oh, I see. It was at the end of your message. If you put it at the beginning of your message, I'm more likely to see it. My first kiss was from my cousin. I was 12 when we were playing Truth or Dare. She dared me to kiss him. It was weird. Boundaries were not normal. Oh, no. What is with the... I don't like this. What have you opened, Jake? Accidental, weird Brooks final grift. It was all about this. Whew. I actually, can we move on? Well, we're going to talk about my first kissies now. This is not familial, though. I just thought it was interesting. My first kisses were both without consent by young girls, and I just realized that. My first 2 kisses ever, I did not give consent for the smooches, and I am surprised I haven't realized this before. My first one, her name was Lauren, and she turned out to be a total smoke show when we became adults, and I really missed the boat here. This was a big mistake on my end, okay? I fucked this up. All right. I would have given consent, probably, a smoke show. Oh, yeah. She's good looking. Although I haven't seen her in 10 years, so maybe she's not anymore. But she was good looking for a while. And I've never been that, so I'm kicking my coverage. I'm joking. Please don't. I'm just self-deprecating to deflect my uncomfortability. So her name was Lauren. We were really good friends. My parents were friends with her parents, like best friends for a while. And so, of course, we ended up hanging out. And I remember this was probably around, God, it must have been in the late 90s. And I was a kid. And it was definitely before I was 11. I wasn't even close. Yeah, I must have been like 9, somewhere there. Anyway, we were in her bedroom, giggity, as 9-year-olds, just playing with toys or something. It was innocent. The nose rub thing is apparently an Inuit thing since they normally have their mouths covered. Well, I mean, is that like normal people stuff from the person that said that? Like, is that person who said that part of that culture, or are they just a white? Anyway, I guess if that's part of your culture, that's a little bit different, but I have not experienced that. Anyway, she was like, ooh, hey, I want to play a game. And I'm like, okay, cool, let's play a game. Not thinking anything of it. She's like, okay, stand against the wall. I'm like, all right, cool. And then she goes, close your eyes. And I'm like, okay. And she goes, look like a fish. And I go, what? She goes, like, pucker your lips like a fish. And I'm like, they're called, oh, we're not supposed to call them those, though. Right, Mint? But yeah, no, I've seen that. But I mean, like just calm in your area? Huh, interesting. And she said, close your eyes. And so I went like this. And then she smooched me. And I liked it a lot. But I got crazy butterfly anxiety. And she could have just asked me, but she didn't. She just snuck it on me. And then I fucking ran away from her. I remember specifically running away, and then she cried. That was cute. But yeah. It was cute, but it was like I didn't get asked consent. The other one was in my parents' laundry room. We had like a laundry room downstairs, and it was basically the same thing. It was like I dare you to do this thing, and that happened. I was like, nope, done. But the second girl I didn't like at all. So Jake Scar's little girl. Well, we never ended up doing anything after that. So I'm assuming she thought I fucking hated her guts, and yeah. Jake breaking little girls' hearts. I've made girls cry on accident so many times, not realizing that they were interested in me because I have no capacity to understand attraction. Isn't that strange? Even as a kid, I was like, "There's no way that this person's attracted to me." It was wild. Her loss, missed out on all this corn. I mean, I'm sure she's doing fine. She had a good education. She's probably fine. Attraction is weird to me. Well, not to me. It's pretty awesome. Long story, but I was pissed I was going on a fucking mission. Nice. All right, let's keep going with the consent stuff. Just thought that was interesting.
Auntie and uncle want Finn to sit with them. Come sit on my lap. No, you have to sit on my lap. Finn says, no, thank you. My parents say I don't have to sit on anyone's lap if I don't feel like it.
That's true.
What a brat this kid is.
What a what? Wait, why is this kid a brat? What the fuck? What? He doesn't want to sit on these adults' laps? And Matt Walsh is like, oh, this is a brat? That's a fucking red flag. What? What?
Mom's friends give Finn a present. Does that mean he has to hug or kiss that person? Only if he wants to. Maybe Finn could high five or fist bump instead. Or maybe he doesn't want to be touched at all. It's his choice what happens to his body.
That's true. That's true.
Finn is...
I'm surprised that Matt didn't go for like, unless you're a fetus.
happy to see his best friend, Rue. He asks, may I hold your hand? It is okay for you to say no. Rue replies, yes, you may hold my hand. Thank you for asking first.
But I think this is, okay, first of all, that's a super healthy conversation that kids have with each other. And I've seen kids have this conversation with each other where a kid was like, can I have a hug? And the other kid was like, I don't want to have a hug. And the other kid goes, aw. And then the other kid says, but I'll give you a high five. And the kid lit the fuck up and they gave the best, crispest high five I've ever seen two kids have. And then they just continued friendship. I mean, that's cute, right? I think it's okay for kids to learn to take no as an answer in reply to physical contact. How is this a bad thing in any way? Hey, can I give you a hug? No. That's important for kids to learn. What? Did the D&D move to another channel? No. D&D is still on. We just finished the first campaign. The next campaign for D&D will happen later this month. So, or the very beginning of November, but probably the end of this month. Like the next 2-3 weeks. Yeah.
And that's it. That's the end of the whole story. Okay. Then there are discussion questions at the end, which we won't get into.
Why won't we get into the discussion questions, Matt? I think maybe you should enjoy the discussion questions because this children's book, clearly you need to learn from. What day do you play D&D? We'll be playing on Thursdays, most likely.
So that actually is...
Before Critical Role. We'll be lead into Critical Role. Freaking out. Thanks for the 13 months.
Somewhat surprisingly, this is the worst one yet.
What? How is this the worst book? How? What? I
think that this somehow manages to be more disturbing than books that are pushing transgenderism and bisexuality and all that kind of stuff. Those books are bad too, but don't get me wrong, but this one disturbs me on a deeper level.
Matt Walsh is a fucking maniac. Kids being able to say no to his physical contact is his worst case scenario nightmare situation? He thinks this is way worse than anything else you could tell a child? I mean, straight up, is it crazy for me to be like, oh, that's a pedophile? In what way isn't this pedophilic? How? How in any way is this reasonable? Patty, I'm disgusted by you on a deeper level, Matt Walsh. True.
So let's count the ways. To begin with, before we get to the major problems here.
What's the major
problems? This kid is awful. I mean, this is what happens when you have permissive hippie parents. I can't imagine if I was a little kid, if I was like 6 years old, and my grandmother came to visit and said, hey, give me a hug. And I said, nah, I don't feel like it, Granny.
Why? What if you don't want to be touched? What?
I cannot imagine what my dad's reaction would have been. It would not have been pleasant, I can tell you.
Well, then your dad's a fucking loser then. Your dad is an abusive fucking loser then. How? How in the world can you see a child saying, I do not want to be physically interacted with by you as a bad thing? Did he just play a slap sound effect? No, he showed this.
It would not have been pleasant, I can tell you. My reaction with my own kids wouldn't be pleasant in that situation. Yes, I tell them. I guess let me tell you something.
Oh boy. Here we go. Are you ready for this? Let's just watch it without me here.
I violate my kids' consent all the time.
That tracks. That tracks. Is it caught in 4K if you film it yourself? Okay. All right. I think someone should clip that. Just saying. Just saying.
In the sense that I force them to do things they don't want to do.
Study!
That's much of the day, in fact, involves them doing things that it's not their idea to do those things. They don't really want to do those things. Clean their room. Let's start with that.
Okay. All right. We're talking about some different fucking things here, okay? So there's a difference between consent and, stuff you just have to do because they're kids, right? Like bath time. A kid must be clean. You can't let a kid just fester in his own or their own filth, I guess. Sure, right? You can't just let them like eat cookies and not do anything else. That's not what consent is. That's not what consent is. Consent means that they have bodily autonomy. They don't necessarily have autonomy of like they can live their own life. They're children. We understand there's a version of the sort of like third party consent that isn't going to be okay until they get to a more self-sufficient level. Like 12, 13, they can start to like really live pretty truly independent lives. Then by 16, when they can drive, if they have a car, I mean, they're basically as independent as they're ever going to be. That's besides their they need financial support from their parents or whatever. But we're not talking, when we talk about consent, we're not talking about do chores. Like what? We're talking about physical contact. We're talking about just so many things that are crazy important. We're not talking about rules. Like this is not the same thing. It's just not. It's so weird that he sees physical contact with an adult being optional, something a kid can opt into, akin to just no discipline whatsoever. What? If he hits his kids, he's violent. Well, yeah, but that yeah, absolutely. That includes, but I'm sure he hits his kids. I'm sure he does. There's a 0% chance. I guarantee you there are videos of Matt Walsh. I don't even have to look it up. I guarantee you there are videos of Matt Walsh or tweets of Matt Walsh or something where he's like, oh yeah, 100% spank your kids. Absolutely.
Like, I don't get their consent for that. What is that, forced labor? Is that slavery?
How is he taking this that way? That's not what consent means.
My kids know that when a family member comes over to visit,
sure,
you go and give them a hug.
I mean, you don't have to give them a hug. It's definitely a thing people like to do. I don't think most people, this is not anti-hug. People like hugs. This is not anti-hug. Hug grandma to your heart's content. But grandma gets consent too, for the record. But like, have you never had a kid like just latch onto you and not let go, and you're like, dude, I need to fucking live my own life, stop touching me? Have you never? Kids violate consent as well. It goes both ways. Kids need to learn consent to one another. What about that kid that came over? Can I have a hug? No, I don't want a hug. Why do they need to hug? What's the obligation? There's this really strange societal expectation about consent, like the concept of consent in general, specifically when it comes to things like physical touch or some sort of social obligation. It causes people to end up lying in situations where they could simply tell the truth instead. You know what I mean? Wild to me. Wait, Matt Walsh is anti-spanking? I'm very surprised and happy about that if he's anti-spanking. That's actually a very good thing if he's anti-spanking. Credit where it's due if that's the case. But like, if you want to be hugged, get hugged, right? If someone doesn't want to hug you back, that's fucking fine. That's fucking fine.
It's not an option. It's not a choice. You are required to do that.
Well, don't look at me like I'm frickin' Frankenstein. Give your father a hug.
Because that's polite.
It's not polite. You do not have to be polite. You know what the polite thing would be? The polite thing would be, say I come over to my brother's house, and he eventually has kids, and I'm like, and I want a hug from the kids because they're cute, right? And I love them, and I love my brother, and I love his family, and I'm trying to be a good uncle, and I go, come here, because I'm a good hugger. I give good hugs. And let's say he has 2 kids. My brother does not have kids. He eventually probably will, which is sad, but whatever. I say, come here. One of the kids gives me a hug, and the other one says, I don't want to. You know what I'm going to say? I'm not going to be like, wow, you're fucking rude. I'm going to say, all right, cool. Well, if you do want a hug at any point, you can just ask me. If you don't, that's fine too. Because that's fine. You don't have to give me a hug. Tammy? Oh, God, I hope they don't name their kid Tammy. polite is not, I mean, there's, again, there are societal expectations that we have where people, instead of just being honest about how they feel, because of people like Matt Walsh, feel the need to just lie about it. Oh, I'm sick. Oh, I don't feel, whatever. Or they just do it. It's fucking awful. The Umadine, thanks for the 18 months.
But the major problem here is that the book explicitly sexualizes physical contact between family members.
What? Does it? What? How?
I mean, this author who is it? Eleanor Morrison. He, his, her, whoever's, they're taking their own.
How? What?
I don't want to misgender them. Whoever it is, they're taking their own.
Eleanor? I think we could probably just toss out a she, maybe. And if you're wrong, you'd be like, oh, okay, I got that wrong. Why is he taking it sexually? Who fucking knows?
Own complex and projecting it onto everyone else.
Does he think consent only has to do with sexual content? Is that actually real?
I don't know what's going on with you that you view a hug from an aunt or a grandfather as potentially sexual in nature.
No one is saying it's potentially sexual. What are you talking about, Matt? It's not about it being sexual. It's about it just, you don't want it to happen. Consent is not for just sex. Sex is obviously probably the thing we think about most when it comes to consent. But you can teach consent to people and not have it have anything to do with sex. In fact, I think we have consensual and non-consensual interactions more often in human existence outside of the sexual context than anywhere else. I mean, it's pretty much just obvious, right? Like, this must be projection. I have no idea how he could take this as a sexual thing. No sex came up. It's a bit yikes if the only thing you can think about consent from kids is sex. Pretty fucking yikesy.
Nature. But it's something you should be talking to a therapist about. You don't write it into a children's book.
Have you gone to therapy, Matt? Because I really think you could benefit from having someone tell you that you're a fucking maniac.
For God's sake. And this is what you get from the left, right? They grew up on a diet of Freud, whether they know it or not, and now they see everything.
Freud isn't respected. What are you talking about?
In sexual terms.
It's not sexual.
Everything is sexual. They're incapable of conceptualizing any human interaction that might occur outside of a sexual framework.
How? It's so weird. Literally filled with leftists in this chat right now. Filled with leftists. And each one of us, when you said, oh, this is sexual, all of us were like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's not through a sexual lens at all. We were all surprised, and I guarantee you any leftist that watches this would be incredibly surprised that you brought up sex in this situation. Like, there's no context for sex in any of this. Any of it. Wild. Absolutely wild stuff.
Everything for them is sexual or potentially sexual.
No,
and
what are
they're
you
weirdos, in
talking
other
about?
words, to summarize.
Losers, in other words.
I mean, let's take the family dynamic out of it for a second, just for a moment.
Okay, let's take the family dynamic out of this family book, sure.
Because I don't want to dwell on that. It's too disturbing.
What's too disturbing?
And let's pretend.
Oh, because he's talking about sex again. See, I already, this wasn't a sexual book. It's so weird.
That we're talking about just some dude and a girl, and they're not related.
Okay.
Even in that context, the idea that verbal consent should precede every physical interaction.
It doesn't have to precede every physical interaction. It does not need to proceed 100% of physical actions. That is not what anybody who talks about consent is mentioning. You can do that, but I think every single person agrees that that is a sluggish way to navigate a social situation. What this is about, what this is establishing, is not that you do that with every situation 100% of the time. It's that you are able to do the consent back and forth if you feel as though you need it. That's it. And I also think it's teaching a really good lesson to kids when grandpa goes, hey, I want to kiss you on the cheek, Timmy. And then mom, I'm assuming his daughter or daughter-in-law, in the book says, hey, will you just ask Timmy for consent to do that first? And then grandpa goes, oh, yeah, sure. May I give you a kiss on the cheek? And Timmy thinks for a second, or I guess it was Finn in this scenario, thinks for a second, goes, yeah, that'd be okay. And then you go, okay, cool. Consent is established now. Grandpa can kiss Finn on the cheek now. That has been done. That's it. Now, it's not like carte blanche forever, but like I'm sure if Grandpa later on in the day, like when they're leaving, you know how you usually hug when you get there and you hug when you leave. Grandpa on the way out, I don't believe is going to re-ask for consent for the cheek kiss. But you know what I mean? Like, and I feel like arms open, the kid might just be like, yeah, I'm comfortable with this. You know what I'm saying? Thoric, thanks for the 9 months. The baby is ready. True. It's just about the option of doing it in a setting.
Is asinine.
Yeah, it would be, because that's not what anyone's saying ever.
I mean, my wife would look at me like a maniac if we were walking somewhere down the sidewalk or something, and I said, "Excuse me,
May I have consent?"
For your wife? Again, a wife and a husband have a prior history of consent. We do not need to reestablish kissing your wife on the cheek. It's already been established. I'm assuming you guys kiss each other. You get to. Now, if your wife at any point goes, I don't really feel like it, then that's okay. That's okay too. You can revoke consent, but revocation of consent is more likely to happen in that situation rather than asking prior consent. Like, Sarah doesn't walk through the kitchen and then I ask consent to slap her on the ass. She gets slapped on the ass first. And if by some miracle she says, hey, don't do that, I will apologize. Be like, oh, sorry, I just, are you okay? Because that would be weird for her to be like mad at me about that, unless I really fucking got her good. But you know what I mean? And even then, I mean, but, it's just, is that a JBP bust? Yeah, someone sent me JBP. So he looks disappointingly down at my sub points because I am not the top lobster. Oh. Jordan Peterson sucks, by the way, if you didn't know that. But that is a Jordan Peterson bust. But it was established before. That's okay. Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you establish it once. You don't have to fucking do it ever again, really. Not pretty much never again do you have to establish consent with people if you are regularly in their lives. You know what I mean? Like, this is just a single time. Like, Sarah and I, for instance, like, are not going to ask consent to one another to give a smooch or a hug or something. We may ask consent to do things sexually. Probably not at this point would we ask. I mean, we're pretty established, but I mean, like, you never know what could happen. Especially in early relationships, if you're trying to figure out what you both like sexually, if it comes to that, or if you're not sexual at all, just like, I don't know, hey, do you want to watch X on TV? Would you like this for dinner? Like, that's a form of consent, and it's just about understanding the other person's boundaries. And if someone happens to have some sort of, like, I don't know, emotional, reaction to being touched in ways, and because some people can be uncomfortable, they have trauma in their past, or they're just have anxiety or something, that's fine too, and you can work through that with somebody. But like, reestablishing consent constantly is not really a thing that you have to do in most relationships over and over. However, yeah, you make your own rules in romantic relationships. However, if you are, say, a casual sexual partner of somebody, where it's not like a relationship, but it's like casual, 100%. If you respect that other person and you, I don't know, want positive sexual interaction with that person, asking consent to do things for people is good. Some people ask consent to like fucking say sexual things in general, like, hey, just reestablishing consent. Can I send you a picture of my butthole? And you're like, hell yeah, I love buttholes. And like, that happens. Like, so that's fine. I really don't see a fucking problem here at all. I don't know who besides someone who would violate consent would ever be anti-consent. Strange though.
To hold your hand, requesting permission to initiate physical interaction.
Permission granted. You may maintain physical contact for 75 seconds.
Thank you, ma'am.
That's what they want.
That's not what they or anyone wants. That's not the conversation that anybody has. Matt Walsh. Hey, Matt Walsh. Talk to me about consent, pussy. You won't do it, you beta little bitch. That probably wasn't the way to go about it. Matt Walsh. I'm requesting consent to talk about consent with you. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you will dismiss me because of the corn suit. But really, it's just a way to hide from my intellectual superiority.
Her ramble
Also,
was
you
just
kiss your
a
children on the mouth. I don't know if that's true. He feels like a family kiss guy, though, due to his juicy beard lips. Earthling, thanks for following.
Now we know why leftists are so angry all the time. They're lonely. Nobody wants to be around them because
What are you talking about?
they act like some bizarre mix. It's the weirdest mix of hedonistic sex fiend and robot.
You wouldn't know perversion if it put clamps on your testicles.
Leftists
What are you talking about? I don't think this guy has good sex. Tossing that out there.
men in particular are just lonely. There's no way any woman wants to be around this kind of thing if they carry on like this.
I don't know, bucko. Your boy fucks. So I don't know, dude. I don't have a problem with that. It doesn't really By the way, consent in a sexual context is like the hottest fucking thing that can happen. Consent is crazy hot. Imagine wanting to do something super nasty to somebody and saying, "Hey, can I do this super fucking nasty thing?" And then they say, "Yes. I want you to do that."
All of this hyper consent stuff, it makes sense among machines. But for organic creatures, we need organic interactions. We need things to develop naturally.
I mean, things literally do develop naturally.
But this all, again, this is, I'm talking now about two adults who aren't.
Why does consent always have to go hand in hand with sex? It doesn't. That's just what he's talking about now. The beginning of this book was not about sex at all. In fact, he just turned it into that. That's the whole point, right? The idea of this consent book had nothing to do with sex. It was literally about familial hugs. Grandma or grandpa came over, kid was like, "I don't want a hug." And then they were like, "Okay, cool, I respect your consent." That's it. It's all about bodily autonomy and being able to understand it. And this is what we've talked about before on this channel many, many times. I've talked about sexual education, which is not a thing that is very good in this country from a public school perception or perspective. Sex education doesn't have to be about sex until they're teenagers, really. Like, until you get about, 12, 13. You really don't need to actually talk about sex. The only thing you need to talk about is consent. And just understanding that you get to consent or not consent to any interaction you have with another human person. Like, that's what it's about, right? I mean, that's all it really is about. Matt Walsh just wants to keep violating his kids. I mean, he literally said he did. I mean, he quite literally said he did.
I violate my kids' consent all the time.
I just don't know how you can it can be this way.
Related. So I'm doing the book a favor by framing the conversation this way. What the book is actually talking about, again, are little kids and their grandparents. Mm-hmm. They want robotic consent requests, even in that context.
It's not a robotic consent request. It's just telling the grandparents and the grandchild that there are physical limitations to their shared interactions. You know what I mean? Like, that's all it is. All.
Excuse me, young one. May I have consent to kiss you on the forehead and squeeze your cheeks and remark on how big you've gotten since I last saw you 2 months ago?
Permission denied. Get lost, you old fart.
That is literally the future the left wants.
I can't believe he is making a meme like that. Just so ridiculous. Would you like a hug? I mean, any interaction that you're going to have with a kid that's going to end up in them not consenting to your, hug or something like that is going to be hopefully honored by the person. Like, if grandma walks up and goes, "Can I have a hug, Timmy?" And Timmy goes, "Grandma, I don't really want a hug." Is grandma going to go, give me a fucking hug, Timmy? I fucking hope not. I mean, he's just... What? Bitterest Bucky said it best. What a disgusting fucking person. 100% disgusting. True. Mine would? Well, then you need to teach your grandma about consent. Teach your grandma about consent. Seriously, though. I mean, it's important. It's just important for everybody to understand that even as adults, you have the ability to not give consent to people.